Welcome back to another Castle Nathria card review. We've just got a couple cards in this one, the Hunter Legendary behind me, and one other card that just got revealed. And this is actually our second to last review. Believe it or not, we're almost through. Tomorrow, all the remaining cards get revealed. So I'll do one big review tomorrow for number 20, and that's it. It's been kind of a long reveal season, but at the same time, I can't believe it's already almost over. That said, let's talk about Arelon here. He is another Wild Seed card. 5 mana, 4/5 Hunter Legendary. Battle Cry, summon one of each dormant Wild Seed. And I'm not going to walk through all these Wild Seeds yet again, but they're there on screen if you need to review what they do. So essentially with Arelon here, you're getting 4 minions in total, and you're going to get that 4/2 Great Bow off of the Stag as well. So for 5 mana, that is a lot of stuff. It's just a big old pile of stats, some keywords, some immediacy off that weapon. I mean, it's delayed, but once it summons, you know, you get to trade with it or go face if you need to, which can be really great for Hunter to create some pressure. And this is on top of all the other Wild Seed cards as well. It feels like you're going to have these chains of Wild Seeds essentially popping up throughout the course of the game. And hopefully you just eventually overwhelm your opponent with all these different Wild Seed cards and all these bodies getting summoned at various times. And I think the Wild Seed package has looked really strong. I've given good scores to each of the Wild Seed cards so far. It sure seems like Arelon is probably going to fit right in there. There's a lot of hype for this card. I think there is a very high likelihood that Arelon is good, just because there's so much happening here. That's often a sign for a great card, just how efficient and how high value this feels like it's going to be. But I am going to walk back just a little bit of hype for Arelon, I think. I'm gonna pull it back just a hair. This is actually the one Wild Seed card that makes me the most nervous, even though it seems like it does the most. The reason for that is because he is at 5 mana, and all the other Wild Seed cards we've seen so far come in at 3 mana or less. And certainly with these dormant minions coming up over the course of the game, I think that's something you want to launch and kick off as soon as possible, because you want them coming up all kind of around the middle of the game. I think is when they're going to be most impactful. So if you have Wild Seeds popping up on turn 4 and 5 and 6, I think you've got this little power band right there where you're really going to start to overwhelm your opponent. You're going to just be hitting a lot of stuff all at once. It might be too much for them, and that kind of leads you to victory. You leverage all of these summons throughout the mid game to turn the corner and then end the game if you can. But I will say, I don't know that Arelon fits especially well into that game plan, because I think if you're playing the other Wild Seed cards, you might want things happening on like your turn 5 or your turn 6 that are more immediately high pressure. Maybe you're looking for like damage at that stage to help finish if you're a more aggressive hunter, or maybe looking for something that's a more immediate threat, like some kind of sticky death rattle or higher attack value unit that's following up and happening simultaneously to your previously summoned Wild Seeds all activating at the same time. So you build those swarm boards, overwhelming boards on turns 5 and 6. Whereas Arelon is like more setup. He's building out for turns 7 and 8 where you start to summon the things that you're really excited about. So it almost feels like you might be taking this kind of breather in the mid game if you play Arelon on curve, as opposed to turning the corner and finishing a game. And I wonder if that might go at odds a little bit with certain varieties of Hunter that are looking to run this package. So I could see some lists where you run the other Wild Seed cards, but you maybe cut Arelon because you just need to hit harder and create more immediate pressure. It's not like playing this on 5 is a disastrously slow play. It's just about optimizations and rhythms and stuff. So again, I still think he's going to be good. I just wouldn't be totally shocked if there are decks that care about Wild Seeds but don't care about Arelon, because you don't really need to commit every Wild Seed card for them to be good. They're often independently good. Yes, the one that removes some of the dormant timing, Wild Spirits, I think it's called, does sort of synergize, but might in some weird way actually be the weakest of the Wild Seed cards in my perspective. But that's not saying much, because I think they're all really good, and Arelon will actually still be a solid card for sure. And next up here we have the Party Crasher, a new 8 mana 7/9 neutral with Battle Cry. Choose an enemy minion, throw a random minion from your hand at it. So for those of you looking for really specific card text, I don't know if this one's gonna satisfy, but the way this works is probably what you expect based on what I listened to for the reveal real quick. You are gonna get a random minion from your hand. So let's say you randomly hit a 12-12 for instance, and your opponent has that spicy 8-8 on board that you really need to kill. So you target the 8-8, you randomly hit the 12-12, it's gonna throw the 12-12 at the 8-8. It's basically gonna have a minion combat, like it's attacking, and it's gonna value trade in this case, and it will leave you behind with a 12-4. And of course it stays on board in this case if it has any effects like death rattles or whatever. You're also gonna get to realize some nice death rattle advantage on board and cheat a 10-drop into play, while also of course summoning a 7-9. So you can see in a world where you have like a lot of big cards running a big deck with big minions in hand, this is a 7-9 base that essentially allows you to play a card from hand, so cheat like a 10-drop or another 8-drop, whatever it is, while also potentially removing something from your opponent's side of the board. You could also do things like an owl, for instance. A humongous owl is great because suddenly you kill the 8-8 and then maybe deal 8 damage to your opponent's face. So the certain shapes of minions or divine shield minions, because it's normal minion combat when it's thrown, could be advantageous, proccing death rattles if they die, using a divine shield to keep a fully health minion left behind, or just cheating big minions into play. So a couple different ways to use this, and of course that 7-9 on top of all that is pretty cool as well. Now the downside here in the risk is obviously that it's a random minion from your hand, so a lot of decks wouldn't really be able to use the Party Crasher very well, because if they had certain, you know, valuable low cost things in hand, for instance, say you're a warlock and you got a Tamsin Roam in hand, you definitely don't want to accidentally throw your Tamsin Roam to her doom into an 8-8. As amusing as that might seem, not exactly a great place. I think you're gonna have to build some really specific deck lists for this one to work well, and specifically gonna want either really key effects like death rattles or really high cost, high value things that are likely to take value trades, so you're cheating a lot of stats into play. And I'll be honest, I don't think a lot of decks are going to be able to do that. This is a card that's pretty specific and pretty situational in that regard, and a lot of decks aren't going to want to be looking to make just a kind of onboard stat play necessarily that demands you build and support your deck in a certain way. Maybe if you're like a paladin with enough divine shields and you expect to get some really nice divine shield hits off this, like maybe it's worth it there. Maybe some colossals if you had enough, but it's going to be really hard to form a deck list around that, even with things like big paladin or big warrior historically, which have worked okay. Big paladin's my highest hope for this, but still it's going to be iffy. So Party Crasher, you know, really fun effect, probably an insane arena card if I had to imagine, but for standard I think it's going to be very difficult for a deck list to make this one work. Erelon is a 4-star card. Party Crasher is a 2-star card. And there you go, folks. That wraps it up for this second to last Nathria review. What do you think about these cards? Is Erelon going to be absolutely nuts? Is he way better than the other Wild Seed cards? I want to hear those takes and more in the comments below. But until then, thanks so much for watching. And until next time, game on.